I want to say a toast also. Chris and Jacqueline, I just want to say thank you for inviting us. We had a wonderful time. And I just want to say Joe and I loved spending time with my brother, Melissa. And we love you guys very much. Oh, yeah, and happy 50th to Caroline. And that's it. It was a great week. So, cheers.
Hello. You're happy to be with everyone. What about me? You forgot to include me in the toast. I guess I wasn't worthy? It doesn't make sense to me. Pick and choose. When we're family, when we're not. Quite honestly, I felt embarrassed.
Hi, my Housewives Relatable listeners. It's your girl, Stella. Once again, we're going to talk about it all. What did everyone think of the last 2 episodes of New Jersey, especially the last one? I thought it was a bit wild. So we're going to cover everything. We're going to get into the thick of it. But first, I just want to talk about what has been happening outside of the show. Did you happen to catch Jackie on the after show? I find it funny that Jackie and the other women, they feel so bad for Frank and Tanya. If you recall, those are the same women that took a poll at Michelle Paya's party when Dolores was with David at the time. And the women were like, you deserve a man that puts you first. This man is stalling. He bought you a Porsche instead of a ring. Joe Gorga even said to Frank, I love you, my brother, but you broke this woman. She's a broken woman. Do you remember that? I know that Joe Gorga's comments at the time, they were received as chauvinistic, and everyone was like, you don't call a woman broken. And yes, I agree, it was harsh, like in the moment, especially in the way that it was done. But you know who else called herself broken? Dolores herself. And I want you to listen to those 2 audio clips.
We're divorced.
Yes.
You know, I've accepted it now because I had no choice.
Let me ask you really quick. What were your parents feeling when that happened?
When I had to go to my mom, 9 months pregnant, and say Frank left the house, I gave him a choice to stay, and he left. She was a mess. And my dad walked up to the table and goes, come back home.
That's so wonderful. Isn't that something?
So you had that support.
I had that support.
Yeah, that's
I
wonderful.
had that support. It was
Instead
really...
of putting it back on you, because sometimes parents can do that. Like, what did you took
do?
it on as themselves.
That's wonderful.
They didn't look at me like pregnant with 2 kids, not knowing that Frank was going to do the right thing.
Yeah.
You're ours. We got you. Come home.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we'll raise the kids if he doesn't do it, which he did. Frank, my father had a long talk with him, and he said, we will always consider your family as long as you do the right thing by her and those kids.
Okay, and he did?
He did. Okay. Until he couldn't, because things had hard times. However, I wasn't going to let divorce come between the family that I wanted for my kids. I wanted what I had.
Yeah.
And I kept it together as much as I can. I would let Frank come for dinner. I wouldn't fight in front of them. It took a while, but I did.
Yeah.
And they were young. I beg people now, please don't fight in front of your kids. Let it go. Yeah. Let it go. I know it's not easy.
It's really hard because
and it takes 2.
Yeah, people are putting their children in between whatever's happening, and it really, truly destroys the children.
It does. And I didn't want that.
So what was it like being a single mom?
It was lonely. I would take them on vacations by myself.
Mm-hmm.
I was secluded.
Grow a lot through that?
I grew so much. I was secluded because I always stayed away from, I didn't want to go by somebody's house, their husband's home from work, and I'm the single mom. I don't want to go to your house when your husband's home, because when he's, I forbid, don't look at me like I was 28 years old. I was a pretty girl, you know?
Yeah.
And people didn't really want me around. I'm being honest.
Yeah. No, I understand it. I absolutely do.
And I come from an old school respect where, like, I didn't want to call somebody when their husband came home from work and talk on the phone. That's your family time.
Yeah.
But I was lonely a lot.
Yeah.
As close as I was with Frank, Frank was also doing his thing.
Of course.
So at the end of the day, it was just me and my kids, and we're
still
very
had
close.
your heartbreak. You still
broken.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the only thing I can't forgive was because of the heartbreak, I couldn't enjoy the cute little things as they were children.
So you were going.
I was pregnant for my son, and my daughter was 3.
And was this something that you wanted to do, or mutual,
or no? Frank had met somebody else during the pregnancy.
Okay.
It got out of hand.
Okay.
And then I had to face him. It was so bad. Listen, I had given Frank a couple things about, like, I would say, Frank, you really need to calm down. You smell like perfume. No, don't think I wasn't heartbroken. I was devastated. I cried to my cousin. I didn't have friends. Mm-hmm. I had no friends. I only had my sisters who would not even understand what I was talking about, and my cousin. Mm-hmm. And I remember just like he was, I've seen it before. Yeah. No soul in the eyes. When a guy is done, he's done. When he is falling and cross the other side, hey, listen, a guy goes out, they go to the strip club. Like they do. So when somebody now falls for who they were fooling around with, you're in trouble.
Right.
As a woman, your family, he can't think of anything but that when he's with you.
Yeah, that was rough. That was from an interview that Dolores did approximately 3 years ago, and it's available on YouTube. You can find it under Wake Up with Marcy, and the interview is about 30 minutes long. I feel like I've learned more about Dolores in those 30 minutes more than in the whole 7 years that she's been on The Real Housewives. So, it's just to say that this woman, she truly has a story that is not being told on Housewives. And I think that the producers, they're not necessarily maximizing her as much as they could. And by the way, I didn't even know that Dolores was Frank Catania's second wife. Frank was married before. She says this in the interview. She says that Frank was married before her to his high school sweetheart. And I guess that, they were too young and they got divorced, and then he met Dolores, and that didn't work out either. So again, nothing against Frank Catania. I like him as a character on the show. And I'm not going to go and hold his past mistakes against him. I think I said this before. I like him as a character on the show, and I think he is often the voice of reason on Housewives, right, amongst the men, and even sometimes the women. But I do understand what it's like to be raised as a single, by a single parent. Like Dolores said in that clip, it's an extremely lonely life, and dating when your kids are young is it's very difficult as well. Not every person is going to want you because of that, because they feel like you bring baggage like into the relationship. Not everyone is going to love and care and accept your children and take that role of step parent or something like that. It's not for everyone, right? So it's very hard to date when you're a single parent. So and you're not just going to bring about just anyone around your kids. Okay. So it's not because I don't like Frank. People make mistakes, and I'm happy that him and Dolores are in a better place. But think about that. Think about that clip. I'm happy for Dolores when it comes to that. And I'm really happy that Paulie has the stance that he has, and that he's actually claiming her. Right? He's like, I got it now. I'm here for her. This is a new day. This is a new life. And she's feeling good. I'm not mad about it. Speaking of Dolores, I don't know why, but sometimes certain things, they tend to just get stuck in my head. I don't know if this panel, Dolores was on the panel with Frank, Teresa, Louis, and on the other side, there was Jen Aiden and her husband. So Melissa and Joe were not on the panel. So anyways, at some point in time, Teresa is like talking and she says, me and Dolores have like a very long friendship, a long relationship. We met each other in our 20s. So for some reason that kind of stuck with me, because I believe it was in 2021, or I'm not sure if they had a BravoCon during the hot times of the pandemic, but the one before 2022. Okay, so that BravoCon, Dolores is talking and she says, I've known Teresa ever since I am 16 years old. And she also said this quite often on the show. If you recall, there's that scene where with the wreath, and then at some point in time, the ladies go to Siggy's friend. They play a little bit of tennis, and they hired this hot instructor, and Teresa swims in the pool. But just before they get to do that, they had like a little lunch at Siggy's friend's house, and basically Danielle Staub, obviously, she was talking and saying, oh, we had something like really did, and I thought it was very beautiful. And then we see Dolores in her confessional. She says, I have known Teresa since the ages of 16 years old. I've known Teresa and her mother since I was 16, and I would have liked to be there, and I wasn't even invited, right? So that's what she says. So this has kind of like come up here and there on the show. Dolores seems to think that they met when they were 16. Teresa went on her podcast recently and said that she met her when she was in her 20s, and that Dolores was kind of like closer to Dina at that point because they were older, because, like a couple years or 3 years older than Teresa. Teresa's going to turn 51, if I'm correct, on May 18. So I don't know. I don't know why that tends to stay in my head, but I just want to understand the 4-year gap difference, because it's pretty significant. Like, I don't know if there's anything to it, but they don't seem to agree on the timelines as to when they met. So anyways,